my own world of make-believe. Kids screaming in the cradles, profanities. Eyes cross out the ones who heard my cries and watched me weep. I love everything. Fire spreading all around my room. My world's so bright, it's hard to breathe, but that's alright. Hush.
Oh my god! Yo guys, what is up? Max on Borderlands 4 video, and today we're going over our Emperor Rafatine RAFA build guide. Now, this is my first go at making an Apophis Lance build. I originally set out to make a build where Apophis Lance was doing like 90% of our damage, and I wanted to just have Apophis Lance doing the damage. That wasn't working so great. Then we wanted to do Ordnance Apophis Lance, but you can't actually shoot Ordnance while Apophis Lance is active. So then we kind of ended up with this setup, which allows us to really lean into the shock side of Apophis Lance to give us infinite crits and infinite ammo and infinite Apophis Lance, and it allows us to put out some pretty freaking sick damage. Hope you guys enjoy the build and the breakdown. Let's get into it. Before we dive into all of the skills and stuff, I do want to give some shout outs. I know I'm not the first person to make a build like this. I believe Byrdman778, who's a good buddy of mine, was the first. I know Nicktew put out a build that I think is similar to this. I haven't seen their like setups, so hopefully I'm doing something different enough to make this build cool. We did a lot of the testing for this specific build on our own. So yeah, I will have links to their channels down below in the descriptions. So the concept of this build is relatively simple. Basically, our goal is to always have Apophis Lance up and always be proccing Fiesta. Whenever we apply a status effect, our action skill consumes no duration and Apophis Lance consumes no charges. This is really important because every time that we click Apophis Lance, we're going to be re-triggering it. And whenever we activate or re-trigger our action skill, our gun consumes no ammo for a duration. This is really valuable because we can use underbarrels on this setup to spam out tasers, which is their main source of damage. Apophis Lance does actually do decent damage on this setup, but those tasers are going to be great because they do single target and they do mobbing, and as long as we are constantly re-triggering our Apophis Lance, we are going to be constantly getting free shots. And also our Apophis Lance won't be triggering effects. And we're using tasers because they proc a ton of times and they can proc status effects. And while we're proccing these status effects, we can also proc awe to give us guaranteed critical hits on enemies. And that's kind of the main thing that we're going for, is just lots of crits, lots of uptime on Apophis Lance, and 100% uptime on metal management. Now, the reason that you might notice in the gameplay, we're using what I was not expecting for this build. We're using the Dancer class mod. Now, we'll talk about the Buster and the use case scenarios for the Buster. However, in my testing, the Dancer is just better in just about every way than the Buster, besides some quality of life that the Buster can give you. If you did not know, the Buster is the Apophis Lance class mod that reads Apophis Lance as a 25% chance to not consume charges. The more charges used at once, the greater the chance. This can give some nice skills. It can spec into awe. It can spec into perma-last to give your action skill more damage. However, I just want to show you something real quick. So I just put on a Buster class mod that gives me 5 points into perma-last, right? So now, with the amount of points in this, we have a 40% chance to deal double damage with our action skill, which is pretty cool. Not that our action skill is doing the most damage on this build, but if we wanted to lean into this, our action skill gets 40% double damage with this active, right? Now watch this. The Dancer class mod can spec into the skill point Saltado, which doubles all of your overdrive bonuses, and it gives you 100% increases to your overdrive bonuses. This skill is not currently labeled as a overdrive skill. However, it is affected by overdrive bonuses. So, like, literally just putting on the Dancer and killing an enemy to proc Saltado. Now, with only 3 out of 5 into this, where we just had 8 out of 5, I have a 60% chance to deal double damage. So, even though the Buster looks like it would be the best for, like, Apophis Lance damage, because the perma-last is functioning basically as a overdrive skill, we can get a bunch more damage for it with the Dancer class mod. Plus, the Dancer will spec into things like Tamario, which give us a ton of extra gun damage on the build, and we're going to be converting all of our gun damage into action skill damage. So I found for most of the time playing this build that I actually like the Dancer better than the Buster. However, the Buster is really nice to not consume charges or have a bit more uptime on your Apophis Lance to not let it go on cooldown. But there's so many things that just like don't really work with the Buster class mod that we'll talk about. But yeah, for most of the time, we will be using the Dancer class mod on this build because it's going to give us more damage with our guns and our tasers and our Apophis Lance. All right, now let's go over our general skill tree. So we're going to be using Las Yaras. There's a lot of points that are not like super great for us. Las Yaras, or at least in my testing, does not actually go into the underbarrel. So you're not like regenning alt fire ammo. This does work for other things. However, like we don't need reload speed. Fire rate does allow us to put out more tasers faster. So this is great. And then we get down to our next tier of skills. Don't need gun handling, don't need throwing grenades, don't need ordnance cooldown. So we go first impressions. This can proc on the first shot of your magazine. Note that this can be buggy to not proc if you have infinite ammo and you're constantly shooting. That constantly shooting will not proc first impressions on every shot. So just kind of getting down. It does work on some shots, but not every. And then we get metal management, which gives us, whenever we activate our action skill, we don't consume any ammo. That's kind of what the whole build is based on. So this is massive for us. And then we get into the other trees. I kind of hate this left side note. This brain dump gives us critical chance while our overdrive is active, but this is kind of useless because we're just going to be proccing awe, and awe gives us guaranteed crits on everything. We're shocking constantly. I just didn't really want to put points into El Catrine because I didn't want to have to feel like I have to be constantly sliding on the build. If you do want to constantly slide, I would move these points from Brain Dump into El Catrine. Definitely want Conductivo. It gives us more status effect chance and more shock chance, which is very, very valuable for Fiesta. But yeah, if you don't want these points, you could move them into El Catrine. This feels a little bit redundant to me personally, though. Then we move into the right side for El Soldado. This gives us a bunch of extra gun damage while overdrive is active. This bonus is doubled while Rafa is charging our Apophis Lance at full stacks of Hockey or Jacques. I always pronounce it wrong. This is 300% gun damage. So like this is so much more potent than like there's no point in putting like extra points into first impression. It's so little gun damage compared to like El Soldado, which gives us 300% gun damage when this is stacked up. And then we move over to right tree to get Hockey. This gives us stacking overdrive bonuses. That's what's going to get this to 75% crit, this to 150%, is I just need to like currently go do more damage. And then this will stack up to 20. Like for example, right now, I only have what looks like, well, I don't have full stacks of that, but we can just go get full stacks and you'll say, if I just go kill some things, I don't even need to kill things. I just need to do damage with my skills. Now we should be fully stacked. Well, we still need to do more damage with our skills. Now we're fully stacked. Now this is 150 or 300%. Now this is 75% crit. We put points into Mate. Mate sucks if you're using the Buster class mod, because this only kicks in when Overdrive ends, and Overdrive doesn't end until 12 seconds after your action skill ends. So you don't get cooldown until you wait 12 seconds for your action skill to come back. So if you're using the Buster, I'd strongly recommend not putting these points into Mate and putting them into Deadline, because this is basically useless if you're using the Buster class mod. However, with the Dancer class mod, one benefit that we get of using the Dancer is our Overdrive ends immediately. Overdrive is only active when our action skill is active. So when Overdrive ends immediately, boom, we get like a bunch of extra cooldown to get back into our Apophis Lance. Hopefully you're not losing your Apophis Lance while you're in combat, but you know, it is very possible. So this is going to help us get that back. And then I just put some points into Permylast for the chance to deal double damage with our action skill. Once you have Permylast dealing like 75% chance to deal double damage, and it's also getting all of our gun damage bonuses, and it's critting. It actually hits pretty freaking hard, but I noticed that it was actually doing like more damage, for example, with the Dancer than it was doing with the Buster. For our weapons for the build, I'm mainly using tasers. Tasers are super, super nice, but you could use any underbarrel that you want. It really just depends. I just find the tasers really fun, and they're kind of thematic with the build. But yeah, any underbarrel you want to use, can work on this setup. Tasers are very, very fun. They roll in quite a bit of like a damage range. A lot of these are like 1,400s. This is 1,900. The one that we're rocking is at 2,600. I do believe that it can go slightly higher than that, but it's definitely a very high taser roll on our Flutie. For the rest of our gear, we're rocking the Kill Spring. Kill Spring's super good on this build. Currently, at the time of recording this, now with caffeine does not work with the Apophis Lance, which means that you are at the mercy of its cooldown most of the time. So you can't like instantly pop like a triple bypass and get all your cooldown back. So we're using a a Kill Spring, which is going to give us healing, which we don't have a lot of healing on this setup. So it's super nice for that, and with an accelerator roll, so we get more action skill cooldown. I have a throwing knife on. We don't use this. You have a 100% crit chance on this build, but you can't also throw Ordnance while Apophis Lance is up. So this is just like a wasted slot. You'd put anything here. You're really never ever going to be using your Ordnance. For our class mod, I've got a Dancer. Pretty terrible rolls. The health regen is garbage. The cooldown is nice. You're really just looking for 1 point into Saltado and as many points as you can get into Tamario on your Dancer. I still need to go farm a better one. On our energy shield or our shield, you could rock a super soldier if you wanted to. I don't believe the super soldier's +1 ammo regen actually goes into underbarrels. So most of the time I'm using a Watts for dinner. This gives us bonus shock damage, which gives us another source of shock status effect. So we can proc awe more consistently. And amp does work for underbarrels. This isn't going, we don't have enough like shield regen to like amp every shot out of an underbarrel. However, getting this off with the, like 150 just makes it do ridiculous. Without like our bonuses stacked, just shooting one taser was doing over 1 million damage on a target dummy, which is pretty silly. And then for your enhancement, I was using a Vladov enhancement. You could get a legendary one here. I think purple's honestly better just for the 50% underbarrel damage and the triple rolls. Gun damage and gun crit both affect tasers. Gun magazine size does nothing for us. Ideally, you'd probably want like gun status effect chance as like a last passive, or like gun status effect damage would probably be pretty solid too. And then for firmware, we're going to be rocking Deadeye for the gun crit, which does affect tasers, plus the stacking crit damage. Huge because we're doing so many crits. And then 2 points into high caliber for mainly the multiplier. This 10% gun damage is a multiplicative increase. It is additive with the gun damage here. So if you don't have one of these, it's not like it's not multiplicative with this. But the like gun damage 25% and the 10% here is multiplicative with all of our gun damage increases, which is massive damage increases for our build. For our specializations, you're going to want Riddle You This so that we can get in our 50% gun damage. Killer is super important. Critical hits grant increased status effect application chance. This is 100% status effect chance, which is really important because whenever we proc status effects, we don't consume charges on Apophis Lance. We're also using I Am a Gun so that our action skill gets 50% increases of our gun damage, and as bullet train so that we get more gun damage while we're walking. You could technically rock a honed mind. Here, I didn't have quite enough points. I personally would get rid of bullet train for a honed mind, but unfortunately my specialization is not quite high enough to do that. This build can be a little bit tricky to play just because you kind of want to have a bit of an order. Personally, what I've found is I shoot with the lance first. If we proc a status effect with this, we basically have free tasers. So like I'll just tap the lance and then shoot the taser, tap the lance, shoot the taser. As you can see, my like duration isn't going down and my Apophis Lance charges are not going down. We're stuck at 4, and we can kind of just keep this rotation up where we are tapping our lance, shooting our taser, tapping our lance, shooting our taser, tapping our lance, shooting our taser. I do not hold down the Apophis Lance button because we consume more charges faster that way, and we're trying to consume as little charges as possible. We just want to proc the taser to give us a status effect on an enemy, and then follow it up with taser shots, which should be free taser shots because we proc a status effect with our Apophis Lance. You get the point. But for the first time using the Apophis Lance, it's a bit awkward to get the hang of. But yeah, tap, shoot on the Apophis Lance, and then shoot your taser. Tap, shoot Apophis Lance, shoot taser, and then kind of just rotate back and forth with that. And obviously against the boss, you could probably get pretty spammy. They're just gonna die. So tap Apophis Lance and then just spam the taser as fast as you can, and the boss will go away. Guys, that's gonna do it for the build guide. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what kind of build you'd like to see next, and I'll catch you all in the next one, guys. Take care. Peace.